Hambini fans, and welcome to another episode of Hambini Reams. Now, I know a large number of you have been misdirected here because the search engines at Pornhub and RedTube actually redirect here when you type in reaming. Now, those of you with a slightly seedy mind might have an impression in your mind of what reaming means. That isn't what you get here. These videos are completely child-friendly. And those points in the video where I threaten to take someone outside and use my fest tool on them isn't what you think. Anyway, in today's video, all the way from the People's Republic of China, we have these wheels, which are MAGENE's sub-brand called EXAR, and this is their DB508 Ultra wheel set. Now, if you're not familiar with what sub-branding means, well, think of Bontrager, which is Trek's wheel sub-brand, Roval, which is Specialized sub-brand, and Shite, which is SRAM's sub-brand. On that note, actually, go and check out the video where SRAM lost the lawsuit to Princeton. So these wheels, when they turned up, which was a few months ago, weren't actually available on the market. So there's a few little quirks in here which the production wheels probably won't have. Well, they don't have. So yeah, just bear that in mind. I've had them for a few months and I've used them, and I've also pimped them out to some of my friends. So you get the views of a lightweight, handsome, sub 40-minute 10K person like myself, and also the views of some late 50s man with a few little problems, so they're on TRT. For wheel width, the wheel is about 30mm-ish external. I've gone for the tape measure today because I had a few complaints that people couldn't read the vernier. And the internal is about 23, 24. These wheels are not the same depth on the front and the back. So this is the back wheel and it is about 56mm deep. This is the front wheel and that's just a tad, probably 50mm. Now I don't go to the nth degree in terms of like millimeter accuracy because it's probably not required. Right, so these wheels are hooked, so none of that wanking around with figuring out the correct air pressure, and you don't need to worry about the tyre blowing off the rim and then bother with the comments on the YouTube videos where the people claim they're right or wrong. None of that business. Anyway, to be honest, I think that hookless business itself is a scandal and someone needs to be taken outside for a fucking good kicking. I mean, anyway, sorry. If you identify as a snowflake, I suggest you go right up to that search box right now and search for a Linus Tech Tips video, as the physical violence in this video is straight from the mean streets of Manchester circa 1988. Anyway, I'm digressing again. Bollocks. Anyway, it should be noted here that they're taking a conscious decision to have different sizing for the front and rear wheels. So you've got different depths, and that really does improve the stability because you can imagine in England the weather can be quite inclement, and there hasn't been a day where couldn't ride these, so there's no real issue with that. Right, starting at the perimeter. The wheel is obviously hollow and has decent compression around the hooks. I've gone for the gator skins on this set because I'm running TPU inner tubes. The tyre does seat properly, I've just let the air out. But anyway, more on that in a minute. The gator skins are like reinforced GP 4 seasons, which in turn are like reinforced 5000s. So the sidewall on the gator skins I found to be much stronger than anything else I've used. I mean, it's a bit of a non-event really. If you want the low rolling resistance, then get the 5000s. That's probably the tyre of choice for a lot of people. And you can run tubeless, but given how light the TPU tubes are, I would just save the hassle. Right, first of all, some of the wheels that I get in, Pete talks about this. They're like beta models. This isn't it. And if we start here, as we move in, the wall section round here, it thins, so that reduces the weight. And then we get to another reinforced section where the spokes go in. Now, I've seen some spokes rip out the holes under the tension, notably KPS wheels. I mean, the spoke tension is like 1200 newtons, which is 120 kilogram force. I think these spokes might be made by a company called Stren, and they have a very good reputation for spoke manufacture. And they're pretty good, to be honest. They don't delaminate. I mean, the exception is if you're stupid enough to buy a set of Ascent wheels, they are absolute Ascent made in Singapore. Before anyone, says I've got the wrong brand, they are shite. They put me on the fucking floor, and then the owner emailed me asking me to remove my review because it was bad for his business. Fucking hell, it's a good job the NHS looked after me. Otherwise, I would have sued him. But anyway. Yeah, Pete Talk's absolutely right about beta testing. He's fucking right. He probably is right. Anyway, I'm digressing again. As we move inwards towards the middle, we come to the hub and the lacing pattern, which is pretty much of a muchness, really. This is the front wheel, and this is the non-drive side of the front wheel. So on the other side, you've got the disc brake mount. Right, I've taken the cap off of this side to show you these bearings. Now these are quite interesting. The top layer of the bearing races are martensite, or some call it martensitic surface hardening. These bearings look like they've been made by Koyo or JTECT, which is effectively the bearing division of the Toyota Motor Company. Now Campag used a similar system for Chronitect, which is actually a Scheffler product. That does come with some limitations, so you don't often find it in wheels. It's also quite expensive. So the fact that EXAR have put it in these wheels, which aren't anywhere near as expensive as Campag stuff, is quite encouraging. Now, I did have to take this seal off and spray some compressed air in there to flush it. I got some flint in there. I'm not quite sure where from, but the bearing was undamaged, so if you are going to take the bearings out, I don't recommend you put them back in, despite what you might read on some YouTube videos. Right, over on this side is the ratchet, and that can vary depending on which one you choose. I've been using one of those extended lock rings, and you see the damage on the free hub is pretty minimal. I've also found there's some fewer marks that engage on there, so that's what I've done. You can see the ratchet internals in there, so they are clones of DT, so I believe the parts are actually interchangeable. So, but anyway, it's been pretty much problem free, so can't comment any further than that. It just works. These wheels are designed for perfect balance, and I'll show you the balance plot in the PowerPoint in a minute. But essentially, if you use the EXAR inner tubes, which are the like TPU pink tubes, I'll show you a picture in the PowerPoint, you'll be down to virtually nothing on the outer balance. The advantage to that is when you ride, you'll have much better comfort because the ride quality will be better because you're not inducing vibration from the outer balance. And if you ride at high speed, the chance of you getting wheel wobble or wobble of any nature are mitigated. So the high speed wobble is just gone. Now this is actually very important because as the wheels get lighter, you need better balance to avoid rapid trips to the emergency room, which might not be a bad thing if you like nurses. The weight of the back wheel is 745 grams. So the weight of the gator skin is like 430 grams, 420, 430 grams, something along those lines. So to give you a perspective of what a built up wheel tyre looks like, this is the front wheel. So the whole thing weighs 1,055, so it's a kilo in there. And if you take away the weight of the tyre, you're looking at about 600 grams for the wheel. These are the TPU inner tubes. They are EXAR branded. I think they're quoted on the box as 36 grams. I'm not really going to argue over 1 or 2 grams. Now, as I mentioned before, you can run the wheels tubeless, but I've chosen not to. So I've added the rim tape. It does come with the rim tape, but I might use a Continental. So anyway, the tubes are really lightweight. So they rack in, and then that includes the dust cap. So you've just the total weight. Now, if you use these with some lightweight tyres instead of the gator skins, you'll find the response is actually very noticeable because you've got a low inertia setup, so you can physically feel the bike. It wants to accelerate much more quickly, and that's not me just playing on words. That's, you know, engineering can show you that. It accelerates quickly, it brakes better, and it also handles better. So when you want to avoid some women or men doing makeup in the fucking morning, yeah, it's good for that. And to be honest, for ease of use, this system is way easier than fucking around with sealant and waiting for your tyres beads to seat and all that lot. You just, you know, if you don't have an air compressor, I'd say this is better. To be honest, even if you have got an air compressor, because I have one, this is a better method. Bit of an aside, but this is the EXAR tube box, so this is what it comes in. You can get it in, I mean, this is slightly misleading because it says 23 to 28. Well, I've run 32s with it, so it does go up to that, and I've not had it blown off. It probably isn't the right thing to do, but yeah, there we go. I think, well, to be honest, there's a bit of stretch in there anyway. So they come in different lengths, so 75, 60, a few others. There'll be a slight difference in weight, but it's not really that much. Right, on to PowerPoint. The MAGENE EXAR, a Rotodynamic benchmark, and I don't make those kind of statements lightly, but you're about to see the objective analysis. By Hambini, age 5, let's check that pen is working. The pen is working! This is the home page for that wheel set. You can see some of the headline features on there. One thing I would say about MAGENE is they are one of the few Chinese manufacturers who are pretty much at the top of their marketing. Their booth at Eurobike was very polished. I mean, they were all over it. You'll be able to see that in my Euroshite video. If you want to buy these wheels, there are a number of outlets to go down. In some markets, they even have their own dealer network. So, yeah, do that. Alternatively, you can email them, and I'm pretty sure they'll sort you out. These are the bearing fits. As per pretty much every other hub out there, it's a 6 bearing system. The exceptions there are probably Shimano. Yeah. And it's based on O2 sizing. All the fits are okay. They sort of need to be M7 or N7 better. So M5 is better than M7 because it's a smaller range. To give you a bit of context, these measurements are important because it determines your rolling friction. The life of the bearings, the L10 life, is a calculation, but the actual life you get will be determined on that. And it'll also tell you if you're going to get a clunk from a loose axle or some issues around under rotation. So the axle I measured to 0 to 0.01 millimeters, so 10 microns below the nominal size. Bearings usually come with the inner race slightly under, so your typical limit is if it was a 15 mil bearing is like 14.989, so you'd probably say 14.99. So that's the kind of sort of tolerance you'd be looking at. So it's I mean, in steel you'd say it was a ground tolerance. This is the Scheffler or FAG, you know, Ine is the brands of FAG and Scheffler. Marketing blurb about Chronotech. I couldn't find the equivalent one from JTech or Koyo, and if there was one, it would probably be in Japanese. So in any case, it talks about the hardening process and some of the, you know, the additives and stuff that they put on. I mean, this was originally developed for the food industry, but Campag adopted it kind of like, I reckon, about 2012, and it's been in there since. So some of the units with the Hearth couplings, the high-end stuff, uses Chronotech. Now, I spoke earlier about Martensite, and it was also mentioned in the Chronotech business. This diagram is called a phase diagram, and it will be familiar to all those miserable fuckers that are welding and material engineers that tune in to watch this channel. Iron and carbon together can take a few forms, and the properties of those materials change between those forms. So typically up to 2% carbon, which is that sort of line, it's steel. Beyond that is cast iron. Yeah. Now, Martensite doesn't actually appear on here because it's technically not a phase, but it's formed when you quench austenite very, very quickly, so that it doesn't have time to disperse, and then you get cementite. Now cementite is technically a type of carbide. I mean, it's quite hard, it's quite brittle. Yeah. Wheel build quality, not much to say about that on here. I mean, if you're going to send a wheel into this channel, you'd expect all of those to be in spec. Right, this is the spoke tension. It's a bit, the problem with carbon spoke tension is you always have a bit of deviation in your measuring tool. So I'm using a Fag Trummy, which was originally developed for Kevlar belts, but Scheffler changed some of the constants, and so I can use it for carbon spokes. I mean, it's very even across both sides, albeit the drive sides were consistently higher than the non-drive sides. The spoke lacing is odd numbered, but Excel won't let you do that, so I had to frig an extra spoke in there. So I know some of you will get off on that, but yeah, that's the limits of Excel. If someone knows how to do it, so you've got a radar chart with 11 and 10, then do let me know. Right, out of balance. Now this is where, out of balance, this is really where this wheel set is the nuts. The out of balance on it is extremely small. It's like 4 or 5 times better than the well-known brands, and this is no fluke. Someone's gone out to do this. These two radar plots, well, it's actually just a polar plot really, but it's radar on Excel, have the magnitude relative to the position. The datum for the position is the valve hole. I mean, the lines are really difficult to see because they're so small, and that's good. You know, that is really good. This is the calculation for out of balance. So I've assumed 600 RPM, wheel 0.6, G rating 40, and permissible unbalance 389. The permissible is probably an irrelevant number because if you change the speeds, it just increases the permissible. But this graph, I mean, it shows you what the big difference is. You know, the MAGENE versus the other brands. I mean, most of you it's just ridiculous. I should just mention that 600 RPM is like, I think it's 70 Ks I worked it out at. I mean, you should always do it at the higher end. The G rating of 40 is typical for a car wheel, so that's what I've used for here. Anyway, the usual fuckers are around 500 gram millimeters, and then you've got KPS and ASHAT who are at 800. I mean, you'd be really fucking stupid to buy those brands. Anyway, the argument you might use is, well, I'm never going to be up at 600 RPM, 70 kph. I mean, you'll feel the difference at lower speeds because there'll be less road buzz. You've got less excitation in the train. So you can run a higher tyre pressure without losing the bollock damping ratio, you know, that usual statistic. This is the vibe plot. I've used the same scale that I usually use, so none of the stuff's actually showing up. The blue line is new, and the grey line is after 1,000 kilometres. So, I mean, the vibe readings are very, very low, and that's not really due to super duper bearings, or you could even argue, is it a real vibration? It's because the wheels are so well balanced, the excitation frequency is not there. I probably should redo it with a little bit of imbalance just to see what the bearings are doing, but I mean, that's introducing a fault, isn't it, really? I mean, if you look very, very carefully to a trained eye, you can make out the driver speed and a few of the others, like the ball spin frequency. I mean, you would probably just have to bump the range on the graph up a bit, but it's there. It's just very, very subtle. I mean, aerodynamically, it is kind of where you would expect it. The wheels generally follow depth, especially the front wheel. You do get some leverage from the back as well, but it's not as much. I mean, these days I will place less emphasis on that unless you're time trialing, in which case get the Fastsports disc. Anyway, right, the tip bits. I mean, rotodynamically, it is excellent. If you were going to go and get a machine spinning machine with, I mean, these kind of weights, you'd be well pleased with this. I mean, if I got to that level, I'll be well happy. So yeah, it's taken that element of wheel design and manufacturing and moved it to another level. Some of the other little bits and pieces that you probably should talk about, carbon spokes and the hubs, yeah, these are now a given whenever you buy sort of a premium wheel set, let's say. The thing is, it's not really premium pricing, so $1,200, $1,300, I don't think that's bad for this. A lot of the stuff in here, yeah, the engineers get off on it, but if Joe Public bought them, they'd appreciate the difference only when they went to something that was worse. And that's the problem, because there's a lot of this stuff you cannot see. Now, the bad, and this is like all the way across the board, unless you buy something like Specialized, you just don't get the bling. The name is not there yet. I mean, I think MAGENE probably wins space, but certainly MAGENE, after going to Euroshite, they'll end up like Samsung. They already have a lot of goods that they make for other people, like turbo trainers and stuff like that. And I can see that happening. Xiaomi, in the world of mobile phones, that was considered once like cheap crap. Now it's not, probably middle of the road. Samsung, back in the day, it was Nokia. Now it's Samsung versus kind of like Apple. They're the two big ones. And that's it. If you did enjoy this video, remember to smash that like button. And if you didn't, go fuck yourself. And as always, keep banging your hairdresser.